The pamphlets, titled Safer Snorting, have a picture of a snort straw and a line of cocaine on the cover, and pages of safety tips for snorting drugs.
Holy
We truly have reached the pinnacle of insanity when it comes to our government's response to the escalating drug crisis in Canada. Remember the good old days where we had the Just Say No to Drugs campaign? Well, move over, folks, because Michelle Ferreri is going to give you her thoughts on the we're not going to tell you to just say no to drugs. We're going to give you an instruction manual on how to snort crack cocaine, as well as give you the actual snort tube campaign. And I wish I was joking. Let's take a look.
Holy shit. I don't even know how to not swear because this is so insane. Like, so, you know, critics love to say that I'm a rage baiter or conservatives are rage baiter. I hope this makes you freaking rage. Because then maybe if you're as mad as I am or other parents or kids are, you'll actually stand up, say something, and change your vote. Listen to what's going on.
Students at North Barrie Collegiate Institute received condoms and these pamphlets from Canadian Mental Health Association representatives this week.
Already there's so much problems at our school with drug use, and that's not making it any better. That's literally just making it okay for them. People are thinking that's okay, and that's not at all.
The pamphlets, titled Safer Snorting, have a picture of a snort straw and a line of cocaine on the cover, and pages of safety tips for snorting drugs.
It's like kind of promoting addiction to kids. Especially since they were handing out like the sticks to snort stuff with as well.
We're just like thinking that they're starting to like try and interpret things too like early for kids, like when things shouldn't even be being said.
Parents responded and, as usual, voiced their anger all over social media, accusing the CMHA of taking away rights of parents to talk to their children.
This is very much overstepping parents. The content that was being provided is extremely inappropriate for children.
Brett Bukos has a stepchild, nephew, and multiple nieces at Barrie North. He said he is beyond disgusted and called the pamphlets despicable.
What I've found a lot of feedback is, you know, well, everybody's doing it, so why don't we just teach them to be safe about it? To me, that's a very inappropriate way in how you teach your children.
The CMHA admitting fault in a statement to CTV News, saying, in part, CMHA Ontario does not seek to promote or normalize substance use among youth. We regret that unvetted materials were distributed in this context. Barrie North's principal sharing a letter saying, in part, we have taken this matter seriously and have reviewed these concerns with our community partner. This will ensure that in the future, resources that are made available to students align appropriately with harm reduction education as outlined in the Ontario curriculum expectation.
Guys, this is so ridiculous. Thank you for CTV for sharing this story. Speak up, use your voice, share these stories. They are trying to silence this end of it. They're trying to normalize drug use. They're trying to normalize the thing that has killed more people in Canada than we did in the Second World War. 22 people a day die from an overdose in this country, and that's not even calculating the impact on families, communities, friends. This is an epidemic. And you have the people responsible for this policy putting in active propaganda to teach the kids to do the thing that kills them. Shame on you. I will rage all day, every day, because if we don't stand up to protect our kids, then who the hell will?
I completely agree with everything that Michelle said. And I want to go back to two different spots. The one was where the CMAH, so they say, we do not seek to normalize drug use in Canada, especially among minors. Really? Did you catch this? It was only on the screen for a few seconds. Make it your own. Adding a personal touch to your snorting equipment will help you better recognize your own when using with others. Some people add a piece of tape to their tubes or use a piece of colored paper as their straw. Seriously, what the heck? This is not a pair of gym shoes. This is not a school lunch bag that you need to make it your own. They're literally talking about a crack pipe or a snorting straw, like whatever your equipment that you end up using. This is what they're talking about here, folks. It's insanity. So yeah, if I lived in Barrie, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I can tell you that. I would be down at the school. And I'd be down there, well, having a cordial discussion with the administrators there who are trying to say, well, we didn't even know this was happening. Give me a freaking break. You didn't know this was happening. When all this comes out, nobody knows. So this just magically was created out of thin air, and it was just magically approved, and it was just magically showing up at this school. Holy moly, folks. And even the kids are like, I don't think this is right. When you have teenagers that are saying they don't think this is right, maybe it's not right. Now, Michelle made a second video, and we appreciate Michelle giving us permission to use her first one in this. She's amazing in calling attention to a lot of this stuff. And there was another video that she put out, and it was related to Dan Major, who's in the Health Committee. Conservatives in the Health Committee just doing yeoman's work when it comes to exposing what's going on here. And calls attention to a video that has Dan questioning the Chief Public Health Officer. Before that, I want to give you just a bit of context in a piece of testimony that was back from November 2025.
If a 16-year-old enters the federally approved drug consumption site, is there any requirement from Health Canada that prohibits that minor from injecting fentanyl at that site? Yes or no?
If there's an individual who's seeking help from a supervised consumption site, there are health practitioners and individuals in that site that will support them and help prevent an overdose.
So if a 16-year-old comes in, there's no requirements around age? If a 16, 17-year-old comes in?
When an individual
federally?
Who's in need goes to a supervised consumption site to prevent an overdose, they are not asked their age.
So minors can consume hard drugs in a federally approved consumption site?
If there's an individual who's going to seek help, and the supervised consumption site also provides wraparound services, and it can be an entranceway into treatment, recovery, and also housing for that individual, regardless of the age.
That's your context, folks. So, 16-year-old walks in with their safe snorting straw, right? Don't forget that. With their safe snorting straw. Bunch of the adults there are just going to sit there and watch.
In what situation is consuming illegal fentanyl safe?
Dr. Reimer.
So as I had mentioned, when it comes to all substances, whether legal or illegal, there are risks associated with all of them. And so when we are working in hospitals, when we are working with illegal drugs, we are always trying to provide the best possible, safest options for people.
So what would you tell a minor? What would you tell my child or my granddaughter? That fentanyl is, would you say that using illegal fentanyl is safe?
I think that the toxic drug crisis is a complex issue of which supervised consumption is one area that we need to use in our response, but it goes together with prevention, with treatment.
Honourable Member.
I honestly can't believe you can't answer that. Why can't you answer that question? It's fentanyl, we all admit it's a terrible drug. It's ravaged our streets. It's torn apart our communities. And it's government policy that's enabling it. It's enabling these consumption sites. Actually, our health minister, they can do it at a stroke of a pen. Why won't you admit that using fentanyl next to children is not good? It's not good for the Canadian public. It's not good for our families. Why won't you admit that?
The time is up. You can short answer if you wish to. Otherwise, we will move to the next speaker. And Dr. Reimer?
It is a complex issue, and I believe that the answers require complex responses.
Doctor. I thought one of the first rules as a doctor is to do no harm. Now, some of these people will say, well, we're preventing harm, we're managing harm, we're reducing harm. In allowing these people to get high in front of us, we're preventing them from overdosing elsewhere. Meanwhile, the government is handing out hydromorphone, the legal opioid. It's the legal opioid that we've covered before, and Global News has covered before. And what happens with that is the drug addicts that use that realize that, well, I'm not getting really the high that I need from this. So what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll get my pills. Thank you very much. And then I'll go on the street and I'll sell them to Johnny and Susie on the street that are 16 and 17 years old. And then I'll take the money that I get from that, and then I'll use that to go and buy the illegal stuff. And you know what that does? That increases the amount of drug users in this sector. And you end up with more people addicted. And the cycle continues. So let's take a look at some figures and some facts. And virtually all of these facts are from the Government of Canada website. So if people want to disagree with them, you're disagreeing with one of Mark Carney's Liberal agencies. Just saying. Government of Canada website. Funds committed to addressing the overdose crisis. $25 billion through the Working Together to Improve Health Care for Canadians. $758 million through the Substance Use and Addiction Program. For more than 465 innovative community-based pilot projects since 2017. I wonder what those pilot projects are. Oh, right, they're the safe injection sites, right? And it goes through that. $650 million over 2 years, starting in 2024 and 2025, towards trauma-informed, culturally grounded, community-based mental wellness initiatives, including substance use prevention and treatment. Wow! You know, it's amazing that we're spending less on that than we are on actually, giving people the space to get high. Something seems wrong with that to me. Nearly $5 billion through Reaching Home to support communities addressing and preventing homelessness. $72 million here, $20 million here, $17 million there. Okay, fine. Harm reduction. We need to support the supervised consumption services, according to this. Authorizing drug checking services, overdose prevention services, access to and use of naloxone. We had to actually have that at our federal agency when I was there. Access to sterile drug use equipment, including a prison needle exchange program. Oh, isn't that nice? And substance use services and supports. So treatment recovery. This is great. Check out this one. Approving injectable hydromorphone and diacetylmorphine as treatment options for patients with severe opioid use disorder. Now, there's a bunch of other things there. So the science supposedly says that, well, in order to treat these people, you need to continue injecting them with opioids. And some subscribe to the notion that in order to do this safely, you have to wean them off of it. Maybe, maybe not. But weaning people off of it is a lot different than handing people some hydromorphone pills, waving goodbye, and wishing them on their way. It's a lot different than allowing a 16-year-old to come in and snort whatever they want to or inject whatever they want to and then wave them on their way. That's very, very different. That's not treatment. There's a word for that, and it's called enablement. It's analogous to having a AA meeting, but having an open bar provided by the government. That's basically what we're talking about here. So what's the effect of this? I'm glad you asked. Total number of apparent opioid toxicity deaths in Canada, 2016 to 2024. Now, they don't show 2015 because before 2016, which is before the Liberals took office, it was a lot less. But this is what they're looking at now. So you can see the trend and the increase in the amount of injection sites, the increase in the amount of safe supply, and the increase in the amount of these crazy policies has had a direct correlation to this. Now, one of the figures that is thrown out there, and conservatives get criticized for this, is when they say more people died in the Second World War than they have in Canada's opioid crisis because of its mismanagement. And people say, oh, you're making this up, you're exaggerating. Well, we went to Canada's Veterans Affairs website to check it out for ourselves. Second World War, 1939 to 1945. In 1939, Germany invaded Poland. If you hadn't heard, this started more than 6 years of bitter fighting in the Second World War, which finally ended in 1945. More than 1 million Canadians and Newfoundlanders served in uniform, both here at home and around the world. Recall that Newfoundland was not actually part of Canada during World War II. Over 45,000 of our brave men and women in uniform gave their lives, and another 55,000 were wounded. And we thank and remember all of those men and women who put their lives on the line, and all of the men and women in the armed forces that have done so since. 45,000, and 55,000 were wounded on top of that. This is from Government of Canada website. Relation to the opioid crisis. There was a total of 55,000 opioid toxicity deaths between January 2016 and September 2025. A total of 4,162 apparent opioid toxicity deaths have been reported so far in 2025, January to September, of which 96% were accidental. And this goes on. But of note, 78% apparent opioid toxicity deaths in Canada occurred in British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario. The interesting thing is one of the provinces that actually has one of the lower opioid toxicity death ratings per capita is actually Quebec. And there's a really good reason for that. And that's because they have a lot fewer safe injection sites. They have a lot fewer safe supply options. Isn't that correlation interesting? I found it interesting. Isn't it interesting that BC is by far the highest? And isn't it interesting that they're the ones that decriminalize hard drugs for a few years? And isn't it interesting that they're the ones that have the most safe injection sites and pass out the most safe supply? I found that interesting. I thought you would too. Here's some other things you might find interesting. There was a total of 51,563 opioid-related poisoning hospitalizations reported between January 2016 and September 2025. There were 214,469 reported opioid-related poisoning emergency department visits reported between January 2016 and September 2025. Total of 16,610 opioid-related poisoning emergency department visits have been reported so far in 2025. Emergency medical services. 272,875 EMS responses to suspected opioid-related overdoses reported between January 2017 and September 2025. Notice they don't have 2016 in there, so it would actually be higher. Most EMS responses to suspected opioid-related overdoses occurred among males at 70% and among individuals aged 30 to 39 years of age. So far in 2025. Now here's a study that was done in Ontario between 2019 and 2023. This one is interesting. In 2023, we estimate 2,730 safer opioid supply recipients in Ontario, meaning 2,730 people were getting the hydromorphone pills from the government. Thank you very much, taxpayers. Between 2016 and 2023, mean hydromorphone daily doses for SOS rose, reaching 171.9 milligrams. By December 2023, SOS accounted for 1/5 of all oral hydromorphone use in milligrams. Now, let's just look at this a different way, because you're probably cocking your head at these figures, as I was when I first read them. So we look at it this way. Monthly safer opioid supply participation was low before January 2019. Range 0.18 to 0.47 per 100,000 people, before slowly rising 0.09 per 100,000 monthly until June 2020, when it rapidly increased 0.54 per 100,000 monthly. And this goes on. Now, the crazy thing is the conclusion of this study said, well, we obviously weren't meeting the need. That was the conclusion. Gotta wonder if a pharmacy actually financed this study. Because here's my conclusion. When you offer free opioids, more people are going to start using opioids. That's my conclusion. And that seems to be the conclusion based on the data. And it seems to be the correlation that you see with the province that has the most harm reduction strategies versus the provinces that have the least. So, coming back to this, these agencies are trying to look us straight in the face and say, we're not trying to normalize this. You're putting these sites less than 100 meters away from schools. You're actively advertising that, come to these safe injection sites. No problem. You don't have any sort of age limit on them. You have material that should say, just say no to drugs, going out to these kids in high schools, when it's really saying, here's how to do it. Folks, enough is enough. And if you're in Ontario, you should be writing the Minister of Education right now. And you should be writing Premier Doug Ford right now and ask what the heck is going on. And then you should be writing our Chief Public Health Officer's office, and you should be writing the Minister of Health, and you should be writing Mr. Mark Carney himself. Because all of this is policy related, and we've seen this experiment go on long enough. We've had more people die from overdoses in the last 10 years than did in all of World War II. It's time to stop watching our loved ones die, and time to start bringing them home.